You are listening to Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan.
Epilogue. Buck spent 4 days in the ICU at Valley View Hospital, and then 2 weeks in a regular room. He had a concussion, assorted cuts and scrapes, 4 fractured ribs, and one of his ribs had punctured a lung. The gash on his head required 14 stitches. He was lucky he had survived. He was sitting on the edge of the bed when Bax pushed open the door and stepped into the room. "You look a hell of a lot better than yesterday," she said. Buck smiled. "Feel better." During the past couple of weeks, Bax had filled him in on progress in the investigation. The DA had worked a deal with Peter Welker. Since his actions didn't hurt anyone, the DA offered him 3 years of probation and no jail time. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor and had to stay away from computers for the entire length of his probation. He didn't hesitate to accept the offer. Also, the local paper, the Garfield County Examiner, was the first to report on the investigation. Seemed like they may have gotten a call before all the big guys did. Buck smiled and Bax laughed. "Spoke to Al Hartman this morning," said Bax. "They found 4 bodies buried 100 yards behind the warehouse in a trash pit. There were no IDs, but the best guess would be that they were the guys Burns hired to load the trailer. All were shot." "A lot of people died because of greed," said Buck. "Damn shame?" Bax nodded. "Oh, some good news. Tina Welker has agreed to keep the pumps running until the spillway is finished. That should happen in the next 2 weeks. Her mining folks are working around the clock to clear enough boulders to get the water flowing over the dam. She also agreed to give the state 50% of the profits from the sale of the rare earth minerals. The governor is pleased under the circumstances. She plans on making some significant changes to the business. I heard from one of the nurses that there is an entire city of construction housing up on the pass, and that they have already expanded 8 miles of the road to 4 lanes. Buck looked at the snow falling outside the window, and the 6 inches that covered the parking lot. "Yeah, just in time," said Bax. "You know the governor better than anyone. Once he sets his mind to a plan, nothing gets in the way. He's got the feds jumping through hoops trying to get him everything he needs and wants." They both laughed. Buck stood up, walked to the closet, pulled down his coat and put it on, with Bax's help and a little wincing. He figured he was going to be sore for a while. He stopped before leaving the room. "I had this weird dream that Piss came to visit me while I was in the ICU. They had me so doped up because of the pain that I must have dreamed it, right?" Bax laughed. Buck sat in the wheelchair the nurse left in his room, and Bax pushed. They passed through the door and moved down the hallway to the elevator. Buck stopped at the nurse's station, shook hands with the 3 nurses on duty, and thanked them for all they had done for him. Bax pushed the call button for the elevator, and when the doors opened, they rolled inside, and she pushed the button for the lobby. When the door opened, Buck was surprised to see the director and the governor standing in the lobby, talking to a well-dressed man wearing a camel hair coat. The governor walked over, and Buck could see sadness in his eyes. Buck stood and they shook hands, and the governor waved over the man they had been talking with. "Buck, this is FBI Director J. Michael Ferranti." Buck shook the director's hand. Ferranti had been the acting director of the FBI for the past 6 months, and had been confirmed by the Senate just a month before. He was young, in his mid-40s, with wavy black hair and an olive complexion. He was as tall as Buck, and his handshake was solid. "Buck, nice to meet you," he said. "I've heard a lot about you." Buck looked from Director Ferranti to the governor to Kevin Jackson. "What's going on?" "Buck," said Ferranti, "I've got some bad news, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Hank Clancy was killed last night." Buck stood in disbelief. Bax raised her hand to her mouth and looked astonished. "How?" asked Buck. "It was all so senseless. Hank stopped for gas last night on his way home from the office. A man and a woman in the parking lot got into a heated argument, and the guy punched his wife several times. When he punched their 5-year-old son, according to the store manager who was on the phone with 911, Hank moved to intervene, but before he even got to them, the husband pulled a gun, shot his wife and son, and then turned and shot Hank. The wife and Hank both died at the scene. The little boy is in critical condition, and when the husband realized what he had done, he put the gun in his mouth and shot himself. We're all heartbroken." Buck was silent and tears filled his eyes. He had known Hank Clancy a long time, and they had been through a lot together. Director Ferranti continued. "I met with Hank's wife this morning before coming here, and she told me how close you and Hank were. I knew all about your relationship and didn't always agree with how you and Hank worked together, but you can't deny the results. She told me you were a man who could be trusted. She also asked me if you would be one of the pallbearers. I'll get you the details as soon as I know them. I want you to know that I disagreed with the way Hank was treated by my predecessor. To that end, as of this morning, I have reinstated him posthumously as the deputy director of the Denver field office. I have also removed all the information regarding that unfortunate incident during the Christmas bombings investigation that got him demoted. He will be buried with all the respect and honor he is so rightfully due." "Thank you, sir. He would be pleased to know that," said Buck, wiping tears from his eyes. "I'll call Victoria in a day or two and tell her I will be honored to be at the funeral." Director Ferranti reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a business card, and handed it to Buck. "I'm not sure I can replace Hank, but I'd like to try. The number on that card is my personal cell phone. Few people have that number, and I always answer it. I have been in law enforcement my entire adult life, as were my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. For too long, we in the FBI have thought ourselves superior to everyone else. Hank broke that mold with you, and I value that relationship. If you need anything, please call that number. I promise you I will do whatever I can to work with you and your team." They shook hands, and Director Ferranti buttoned his coat and headed out the door into the snow. Buck looked at the director and the governor. "Not bad, Buck," said Director Jackson. "Can't hurt to have the FBI director on speed dial. Sorry about Hank, Buck. He was a good man." The director shook his hand and walked out the door, leaving him, Bax, and the governor. "I'm gonna get the car," she said, wiping tears from her eyes and walking out behind the director. "Buck," said the governor, "I'm sorry for your loss. Our loss. Hank was a good friend to Colorado, and he will be missed. This was a tough case. I still can't believe how low the Velasquez family sunk. I have known Ramon for over 20 years and always liked him. You guys did great work. Now go home and get some rest. We'll talk soon." Buck followed the governor through the door and stepped over to Bax's Jeep. She put his go bag into the back and held the door while he gingerly slid into the passenger seat. She slid into the driver's seat and looked at him. "I'm so glad you survived," she said, and put the Jeep in gear and pulled out into the snow.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan. You can find the entire crime series as well as other novels by Chuck Morgan at chuckmorganbooks.com or on Amazon.